So welcome to my YouTube channel. I wanted to first start with an introduction to what I do. So I have many modalities that I use, sometimes individually and sometimes combined together. And I use them really to help people heal their bodies. So I'm a huge advocate for people being able to heal. And I just want to provide them with as many tools and support in order for that to happen. In 2003 and 2004, I started taking Pilates and I became certified in 2004. At the same time, I had entered Pratt for graduate school for art therapy. Up to that time, I was an artist. I also was working in a lot of different art museums, and that was my passion. But in 2004 and 5, I decided that I wanted to move more into a wellness profession and really help in a different way. So I started graduate school at Pratt, and through that, became passionate for working really with women and children who had experienced trauma. During this time, Pilates was just a way that I was making money, but during the work that I was doing, I realized that Pilates really was a container for many of these women who I was working with to start to find more of a connection with their bodies again. Because what was happening in trauma was the body really was being seen as a place of betrayal. So during this time while I was working in this placement, I realized that, through the help of my professors and my supervisors and the women that I was working with, that there was this deep, not just a need for mental healing, obviously there was, but there was also a need to come back into believing that the body itself was safe, because many of the women that I was working with had physical trauma to their bodies. And so through that had started believing that at some point their body had failed them. And so what Pilates did was it allowed a container. So in Pilates, there's a lot of exercises, and the exercises in themselves teach control, right? It's really controlology for a reason. So many of the women that I was working with had experienced trauma in the body. And so in order to feel safe completely, we also have to recognize that our bodies can be safe, that they're not just these places that are harmful or betrayed us or caused the trauma. So Pilates really became a great container. Now I do teach Pilates and yoga, and both of them are great, but Pilates became a great container for this particular work. And there's many reasons for that, but one of them is that in the mat work, the mat in itself is a boundary. And then when we move our bodies on the mat with specific exercises, there's a system to it. And in trauma, one of the things that really helps to keep safety is organization. And so when there's a system in place and the exercises are something that we know what's going to come next, it allows for more safety to happen. So sometimes staying within the classical order is actually the best thing when it comes to working with people in trauma, because they know what's coming next. They learn the specific order, they learn the specific exercise, and then they feel it in the body. Now, this in itself can be scary when some of these feelings start to come up and maybe they're new, but to do them within a framework of Pilates, it just gives the container of safety. It just exists as it is, and then you can sort of move through it in the way that you need to at the time. And so I really loved how well and how easily Pilates fit into the framework of what I was working with these women. And so sometimes, it took a while to get to a full class, but I do love it still as the foundation of my work when it comes to movement. Now, as somebody who works in the mental health field with energy and with healing, I also believe fully that we need to connect to our physical body. And so how else can we connect to our physical body if we're not moving, right? So movement or working out or anything where we're doing something physical in our body allows us to be grounded. And when we are grounded, then we can then move up into understanding emotions. We can move into understanding spirituality. We can understand deeper concepts. We can understand connectivity or community, right? Or consciousness or unconsciousness or any of those things. But what we have to first do is have a very deep connection to our bodies. And so it is in our bodies that we start our healing process. And if we're not in our bodies, then it's going to be very, very challenging to have a full 100% whole healing experience. So the body is always my first foundation for everything. And so I do it in combination. Sometimes I am not doing the movement with the client. Sometimes I'm just doing intuitive work. Sometimes I'm just doing therapy work. But I do encourage people to have a movement practice. So that's one of the reasons why Pilates and yoga is such a huge part of what I do and what I promote.